It's blue.
Oh, technology, don't you love it? Welcome everybody, I'm Gavin Jeffcoat, the Chair of the Community Board. Welcome to our Community Service Awards presentation. Fantastic to see everybody. It's a privilege for me as the Chair to recognise on behalf of our community the outstanding contribution of our two recipients. Certainly both Mike and Don have given a tremendous amount of their personal time and effort and energy into making Coromandel a better place, both physically in terms of the things that you've achieved, but also for the people, making people happier and better and really developing within our town. So really appreciate the work that you've done over a long period of time for the people of Coromandel. Just before we give the awards, just like Kim to say a few words to Don.
This is where she gets her own back.
You know me. Public speaking is not my forte, so bear with. Hello everyone. It is with great pride and a little bit of intrepidation that I accepted the offer to talk about Don Hughes today. I first met Don in 1977, 47 years ago. I was introduced to him as Mr. Hughes back then. He was my new English and economics teacher here at the Coromandel Area School. Mr. Hughes was an amazing teacher that had a gifted ability to make even the most boring subjects become fun and managed to get the whole class to learn even when they didn't want to. Don has been a giver of his time and knowledge for over 50 years in Coromandel. Don was awarded a 12-year service medal for being a voluntary ambulance officer. He has been the treasurer of the Coromandel Emergency Services Trust for 21 years. In 1978, Don was one of the founding members of our town's Coromandel Players. From then up until today, Don has taken an active role in the Players as an actor, producer, director and treasurer. From 1979, Don became involved in the Hauraki House Management Committee. Over the past 45 years, he has held many committee posts and helped with the accounts and the smooth running of our beloved Hauraki House building. He was at the forefront of the restoration and conservation that started in 1979, and I am fortunate to be on the committee with Don and have him as our chairperson. He is still teaching and passing on account skills to us younger ones today. Don has been an active member of the Forest and Bird Organisation for 40 years. He has serviced traps, planted and maintained reserves in Colville and Coromandel. Don was a founding member of the Monday Walking Group, organising walks for over 25 years. He was heavily involved in the anti-mining movement in the 70s and to preserve the beautiful Coromandel as we know it today. From 1991 to 1998, Don was a Coromandel Colville Community Board member. He was a marshal for the Spirit of Coromandel events like the K2 cycling and the Carry Run. Whew. Don has been the treasurer or auditor for so many local groups, it's too many to list. Don has had a wealth of knowledge and is not shy to share it with whomever asks. He is one of our town's unsung heroes, quietly getting on with it. Without people like Don, Coromandel town would not be what it is today. Thank you.
Yeah, an impressive summary of contribution to the town. Thank you. Jean, a few words in respect of Mike.
Kia ora koutou. Mike. I've walked beside Mike for over 30 years and I have watched him, observed him, and he is one amazing man. I have watched him fight for things for people within the Coromandel Peninsula and outlying areas passionately. Possibly the biggest thing that reminds me, Mike, will always remind me of you, is the pensioner flats and how there is such a great need in Coromandel, and there still is today. So we have over 34 families still waiting for pensioner flats. That's how huge it is today. For me, it's been an honour knowing you and your wife. I have to acknowledge you, Alison. You're both two amazing and wonderful people. There is a little saying that quote that I've heard, and it is, you can tell the calibre of the man by the people who work beside him. Kia ora.
Just an amazing amount of work done by two people. We talk about well-being within the community, the breadth of your contribution to the well-beings of our community, as you've heard from these two, is just significant and amazing, and it's a real privilege to give you the awards today. It also kind of makes me think, and you reflect a little bit about what we're doing and our own contribution to the town, and think that maybe we could all be doing a little bit more. I'm sure I would never ever get to the amount of input and the amount of change and benefit that the community's gotten from you two, but I'm sure we can do our little bit along the way. So with that, invite Mayor Len up alongside me, and love to present you two with your Community Service Awards. Don, while you're getting that, can I just share my own story? And Don, I'm sorry I haven't met you before today, but I'm just going to share this with Mike. Mike, when I was standing for election, Mike rang me up, and I'm going to take this out. Sorry, I forget it's there. And Mike rang me and said, would you have a spare minute to come and, and sit with me and have a cup of tea, come up to my place? And I said, I'd like to. I haven't got much time. We'd probably make 15, 20 minutes. He said, that's all right. I went up there, I think 2.5 hours later. And I came away inspired and in great admiration of Mike and what he's done for this community. And, I think took a whole lot of that away with me, and I hope to be able to use that. So, Mike, thank you so much for inspiring me personally. Thank you. Appreciate it. So, Dom. Well done. Thank you for your service. Can I do the honours? Oh, you can.
Wait. Get up there, woman.
We've got our proper.
Turn that around and get a photo. You stand in there. Okay. You stand in there.
Oh, hang on, I'll get another one.
Here we go.
Thank you very much, everyone.
I've learned from experience, you get one shot at these photos, one shot. If you don't get it right, then you've lost that chance. So.
Oh, I've got a good one.
Thank you.
Oh, thanks, Kevin. Thanks very much.
Here's Mike.
Thanks, Luke. Yeah, thank you.
There you go.
Okay.
Hang on.
One shot. Very good. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Very good. Thank you.
So, my first words are, how much I admire this guy. It's tangible proof of what he did. Kind of stuff that I did. There's really not going to be a building, but I hope that I've influenced a few people along the way. But mine was indefatigable. He just stuck and getting the funding for both the flats and for the Kilt building. And the gold mine. And the gold mine. and tremendous assets for the town. Well done, Mike.
Thanks. Thanks, Don.
Yeah, when I first got the notification that I was going to get this award, I was absolutely gobsmacked, as the Irish say. I really was amazed. I thought, oh, that's very nice, very out of the blue. And the next thing that went through my mind was, Jim will appreciate this, I always do these little mental pictures like I'm on stage. And I thought, I could just imagine there are going to be people in Coromandel, and if this news gets out, if it's in the TCDC little monthly summary of what's going on, and my name's on there, Don Hugh, contributions to the Coromandel. Who the hell's he? Because so many of the people that I did help, so many of the organisations have gone. And even more of the people, lots of the people that I worked with in here, and then they've gone, they've died, and the community is worse for their passing. So I say, I could just imagine these, maybe two ladies, I imagine two ladies having this conversation, you know, who the hell's he, you know, just, the impact that I have now, the kinds of things I contribute now, is that on the advice of my friend Phil Anderson, I went down to see Phil. We did the work on the community social services trust in the very early days. Phil was doing the accounts and I was doing the audit, and we worked together on it. And they got nothing. I didn't ask anything for it. But Phil, of course, was a professional accountant. He was being paid. And I went down a couple of days later with another set of accounts, and I said, "Oh God, I've got to go back, and there's about another 2 or 3 lining up. I've got to do audits." He said, "Don't you know how to say no?" And I thought, Phil, you're absolutely right. And from then on, my involvement in local societies in Coromandel dipped away. But as Kim has said, I've kept 2, Horiki House and the Coromandel Players. Oh, and then a couple out of Tacoma. So there's still another 3 or 4 that I can't get away.
Forest and Bird.
Oh, and Forest and Bird. There's a funny story. I'll tell a funny story.
Yes,
Well, go for it.
I always go to the AGM because Kate, she likes to do things that are incorrectly, the right way. So I had the background in this kind of administration. And so I got along to the AGM. I went to the last one and came to the submission of the accounts for the year. And so having had all these beautifully typed sets of accounts, and I'm looking at the accounts, I think, hang on a minute, do I say anything? And so right at the very end, I said, "Look, I'm awfully sorry, but I know you're going to pass these accounts for today, but they don't balance." So, and I thought, I know what I'm going to say next. "Oh, could you have a look at them for us?" I said, "I'll leave it for you to deal with," and I just sat down. It was an awkward moment. Well, I was involved in all these things over the years, not because I expected an award. It's just the kind of people in Coromandel do. You just get stuck in and help wherever you can. If my skills were in accounting or in interest in the theatre, interest in the environment, then that's what you did. Just did a bit. And so I'm quite proud, pleased to receive this acknowledgement. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Well, I want to say something about Don too, because when Alison and I first moved here in July '93, we moved into Rose Cottage, which is a bed and breakfast in Paget Street, to look after it for Pam Holt. And so we'd gone down Long Bay Motor Camp, and there was all this carry on. It had just been taken over by the Irwins a couple of years ago. And anyway, there was different issues going on, whatever. And poor Donnie was just coming off being chairperson of the community board. So I collared him somewhere, I don't know where it was, and I started banging on, Don, what, this and that, and it should be this and it should be that. Alison said it. Because if you don't know me, I'm legally blind, so I'm not that good at picking up visual aids. So she said, you should have seen poor Don, the look on his face, like, you were like the worst thing from hell for him. You can see he was so relieved coming off the community board thinking, holy hell, look at this guy. It just went on and on. Anyway, the Long Bay Motor Camp, it sort of just ticked along and what have you, but I knew Don in a number of capacities over the years, and I've been involved with that Community Services Trust too, that have come out of the old hospital, coming out of being a hospital into the Office of Treaty Settlements. And there was an endeavour to try to take it on, but in those days it was, actually most Pākehā didn't really understand what the process was, and of course it was going to go back to iwi, and there was some, friction that went on there, but people, got over it. And finally the Community Services Trust took on what was the Joy Van, or a little van that the money had been raised by a group of people, and it needed to be under a banner and blah blah. So they had that, and considering the work, or taking into account the work that I've been doing with Kilt, I think one of the things that has stood out for me is that over the years, as people have dropped by the wayside, which they do for a variety of reasons, and they've provided a service to the community, and not just the town, but the whole of the peninsula in some instances, and certainly the ward here, that Kilt's been able to step up and to take on some of those responsibilities, like the community services van, like budget advisory service, the food bank. They wanted to chuck it in a few years ago, and Kilt was able to say, okay, we'll take it on. The bazaar was going to shut down in 2015, and I'm going mad, 2019. And so they said to us, oh yeah, we're going to shut it down and just give out the money. And thankfully there was a bit of a campaign on Facebook, and people said, we need the bazaar. It's where we buy our clothes, particularly for the kids. It's for a lot of people buying secondhand like that. Kids' clothes are all going for $1 and stuff. Anyway, so finally the Senior Settlement Trust decided to give it to Kilt. And I think it must be one of the greatest institutions in town, starting off in 1968 and continuing today and doing a really great job. So, as I say, that's been a really great thing that Kilt's been there to provide that structure, the certainty, the fantastic financial systems that are in place that were created by Joe Scott, who's here today, the fantastic work by the trustees. Bubbles was with me for, nearly from day one, all the way through until very recently. Vicky came on in 2012, and it's been a great journey really, because we've been able to develop a relationship with council, which in the early days council didn't really understand, I guess, what the advantages were in working with community. But to be able to, I think the community board, when they asked us to take on the pensioner flats in 2001, when the council was divesting themselves of the pensioner flats throughout the peninsula, they offered it to the Senior Settlement Trust, and it was going to be $12,000 per flat. It was aggregated debt, and the Senior Settlement Trust said, no way, we're not going to pay a cracker for them. There's no debt on the Coromandel ones. Well, the TCDC couldn't cope with that. Then the Senior Settlement Trust settled. They're shocking anyway. So anyway, we got shoulder tapped, and that started where we were able to take on the flats from the council, refurbish them, and then be able to do a deal with council for a 30-plus-30-year lease to then build the 7 one-bedroom flats, which we opened in 2012. So that was a great thing that happened between the community board and Kilt, and that trust grew over the years, so that then we were able to work more closely. Bubbles was a fantastic liaison person, always being mindful of her role both as a council employee and as a trustee of Kilt. But we were able to, in any number of ways, manage that potential conflict of interest, and we were able to get the very best results for the community, I would humbly suggest. But we did get some great results over the years, and it was with that growing trust that had been built with council and with the community board. And so I guess it's one of those examples where there was a need, which is the basis of community development anyway. The need was there in the community when we first came to town. If you wanted to offer a service in Coromandel, say, you know, whatever it was, a podiatrist or whatever the hell, they'd say, oh, there's 2 rooms up the top of the Drapers, which of course is the Star of Garter these days. And you had to climb up these stairs, like up you'd go. And of course it was hot as hell in the summertime and the traffic's barrelling past on the intersection there. But that was the only place where you could actually offer a service at all. And so Kilt started off in the old hospital, and we got Te Ahi Kaa involved, we had budget involved, and we were able to create a good environment. Brian and Sandy started the family health centre up there, and we had a variety. We even had a dentist at one stage. And then we moved into Tiki House in 2000. John Walker and Julie Walker added on to the back there, and from there kept building. And again, at the request of the community board, Kilt got involved in the waste management policy in 2012, where it used to be council and contractor. And Guy McIndoe, who was fantastic at helping us out on that project, he got community put right in the middle of that you know, 2 bodies, so it's council, community and contractor. And it was at the request of the community board. Somebody said, could you set up something like the Seagull Centre? Well, pretty simple request, you would think, but anyway. So we got the contract for the refuse transfer station under Smart Environmental. We got the money from the Ministry for the Environment. We were able to create the gold mine. We were able to run the refuse transfer station. So whereas in 1993, if you turned up down there, the only sign that said anything was no scavenging. Well, anyway, so the gold mine is going gangbusters, and that's great in conjunction with the bazaar. And the refuse transfer station is also looking terrific. And I'd have to say, in acknowledgement of the council's contribution there, a second employee came on where it used to be a sole employee, and that made a hell of a difference so that the whole thing really hums. And then in getting the land in Pound Street, that was a big leap for council to agree to give the land to Kilt. And I argued that if we were able to get that show of support from council, it would make all the difference in the world in going to the funders to say that council's not only saying they support it, but it's actually tangible. And so a council agreed to that at the end of 2018 and gave Kilt 5 years to be able to pull it together. And in that process, in talking to the mana whenua, to Patakirikiri, we were able to come to the agreement that Kilt would share the ownership of the land and own the building, and there'd be a sublet agreement. And it was a way for Kilt as a community organisation to acknowledge the mana whenua, but also again to do it in a tangible way. Council had given Kilt the land. Kilt was able to share ownership of the land, and I think that all the trustees agreed at the time that it was a really meaningful gesture because the land is going to be there with the building sitting on top of it. But from there has come other ventures from Kilt with the big shed and the mana tangata building being again fixed up by council, which is fantastic. The Kilt's got on a long-term lease. So that's Kilt. I had an involvement with the Dryden Creek Railway Arts and Conservation Trust, as did Alison, for a number of years. When Barry died in 2016, there was a transition period and things. It was a little bit ropey there for a bit, for a number of reasons. But it really took off, and it's been fantastic. And the introduction of the zip line, I'd have to say, has been a great addition to the railway. Alison and I both retired from that a couple of years ago. But it's fantastic to see something like that really blossom and really continue to make a positive contribution to the community. So, in acknowledgement, I'd like to thank the community board over the years, the council over the years. I'd like to thank my fellow trustees who always gave me a fantastic amount of support. I'd like to thank all the people who worked at Kilt, both at a paid capacity and as volunteers. And when I finished up in 2022, I think we had 42 paid workers, or part-time, I must say, but nonetheless 42, and I think we have 55 volunteers. So a viable and thriving entity in town, which, as one of the trustees reminded me the other day, one of the great things has been that where there's limited opportunity in Coromandel, our size, our geographic location, our lower economic and socio-economic status, the Kilt's been really a driving force in introducing things like the living wage as a great example for all employers, and given people the opportunity who have come maybe just with a school qualification or not even with necessarily that, and to be able to give them their first job, start their CV, get work experience, have the opportunity to be able to see all sorts of things going on in the community, and to think for their futures as to what might be possible and give them opportunity. So, and I'd like to thank Alison in particular, and especially, who over the years gave me a hell of a lot of support. John Gaffkin-Cowan, who was my EA for a long time. Joe Scott, and unfortunately Anna can't be here. Joe came in 2011, changed the ball game altogether, and meant that we had strong financial structure, which meant we could go out and really be serious about the projects that we did. And if I have forgotten anybody in particular, I apologise for that. But a hell of a lot of people have made a contribution to that venture, and I certainly hope, however it evolves, and evolution is a really great thing, that it will continue to make a positive contribution to the community, and long may it prosper. Tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou katoa.
Kia ora, mate.
I'd like to say thank you very much for the award. Yeah. I think Len was holding it back until I became a New Zealand citizen, which I did 2 years ago. So that might be the impediment there. But I do appreciate it. I think it's a great thing, and an acknowledgement of well, me actually. So, but I do appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Gentlemen, very impressive. Don, I think the word you used was indefatigable. You've got a sense of it then. I can certainly empathise with you as the community board chair, being faced with that initial conversation 30 years ago. It would have been quite something to behold. But look what's come of it. Like, it just shows how supporting people and the work that you've done to develop people and give people the opportunity to grow, and for Mike's sort of persistence and the work and effort that he's put into the community. And between the two of you, yeah, you've made such a difference to our town. So thank you very much. Also, your humility. Mike mentioned Kilt, mentioned other people. He said I once or twice. And that whole list. It takes great leaders to make great things happen. So yeah, don't certainly downplay the work that you did. And same Don, this is not what you just do. This is what you've done. We do little bits and pieces along the way, and yeah, this is certainly the amount of work that you've done and the effort that you've made is special. So thank you both. Thank you again for your efforts, and put your hands together one last time. Morning tea is through in the cafeteria room, and we'll meet you there for a chat. Thank you. Thank you.
Right.
Yep.